Do you ever feel hesitant to share your faith with the people around you? Today's guest, Jeremy Cho, is here to share his story of how he has stood firm in his faith and how he has impacted the people around him through his testimonies of how God has been faithful in his life. I actually got the opportunity to meet Jeremy during my internship at K-LOVE and Air1. He's the media producer over there, and he's doing great things with his talent of videography. So I just want to thank you so much for being on the show with us, Jeremy.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. We've had a great time putting together a video part series and just working together over the last 8 weeks.
Yeah, it's been great, like just collaborating and just hearing your thoughts and your vision for it. It's just been a very, very useful, practical, and inspiring things for the future interns. So yeah, I've been just grateful to be part of that. So
I appreciate it so much because I honestly could not be where I am today without the people who have poured into my life. So thank you for being here and being willing to share your story. It's so nice to be able to do interviews like this because you get to hear so much about a person that you don't get to see on the surface level. So let's get right into it. You're a media producer at K-LOVE and Air1.
Yep. And so, yeah, media producer, video producing, some audio as well. Basically, full cycle from planning, the whole pre-production, planning, script writing, copywriting, scheduling, all that stuff, to the actual filming of the production, camera work, working with the talents on set, and then post-production, the editing and title design and color correction, all that stuff. So I'm part of a team at K-LOVE. Us media producers, we produce content for K-LOVE. Yeah.
How long have you been there?
Almost 6 years. Almost 6 years now.
Wow, that's impressive. I've only been there for 8 weeks, but
yeah,
that's okay. How did you even end up there?
It's okay. So a little bit of a long story, but in a nutshell, though, I was working in a lot of the Bay Area. Basically, lived there for about 10, 11 years, working in the visual effects industry for film, and everything was going well and all that until around 2002. 2007, 2008, that's when things started getting where the industry was going, taking a downturn, where a lot of my coworkers, my colleagues were moving out because companies, visual effects work was moving overseas.
Very interesting.
And then and there, it was like I finally got laid off of my last job there. At a place called Tippett Studios in Berkeley. And once they laid me off, I was one of the last ones to be laid off in my department. It kind of gave me a sign of like, oh, wow, this industry is taking a turn. And I wasn't ready to move to Canada or to London. I wasn't ready to bring my family to...
Huge change.
Yeah, any of those places yet. And so... so the next thing was like, where do I live? I can't live in the Bay Area without, a job. And so the next thing was moving to closer to family, which was in the Sacramento area, east of Sacramento, Roseville area specifically. So. And
that's how you ended up there. That's amazing. For those who don't have any idea what K-LOVE and Air1 is, could you give a little bit of explanation?
Sure. So K-LOVE and Air1 is it's actually a radio station, nationally broadcasted across the whole U.S. And they play Christian music and Christian media. Basically, it's they just reach people through all the different states and through the headquarters in Rockland, California. It's a nationally broadcasted radio station, and so it's funny because it's a radio station, and I come from a video background, and so God is really funny in that sense, where there's a spot for me as a video producer in a radio station.
I completely agree that God is funny, because my supervisor actually sat me down during my interview to get the internship to be the broadcast media and programming intern. He said, Shasta, are you going to be okay if there's no video components whatsoever to this internship? I was like, yeah, of course. I'm ready to try something new. And here I am, a couple weeks later into my internship, and I'm creating this huge 10-part video series with Jeremy by my side. And just the fact that I was able to do that in a radio industry, you would have no idea. That's so interesting. Did you ever think you could do what you love to do in radio and do it to serve God?
Yeah, that was the big struggle for me, because coming from such a heavy video background, specifically in post-production, in the Bay Area, I thought I was going to start from ground zero again. Like, after the industry had a downturn, I just didn't know where to go after that. Like, was I going to start needing to go into web design or UI design, that kind of stuff? But it just never really worked out. That was a trying time, and God was really having me kind of, be in that wilderness. I didn't know where to go after that. 11 years in the movie industry, then I'm moving to a place in Sacramento where there is no film industry. At least not as big as like Hollywood or other places. So I really didn't know. And so, it's just kept trying, and made some connections, and the right, position opened up in terms of, video production. And so, just gave it a shot, and now here we are, 6 years almost into this job. I've been very, very blessed. Yeah.
6 years later, everything was so perfectly orchestrated. It's amazing to see that. It really is.
Yeah.
What do you think the biggest difference is between secular media and where you came from producing blockbuster movies in Hollywood to working for a radio station who serves to draw people closer to God?
Yeah, so working in the film industry, I was very grateful. Learned a ton from very talented people there. Harry Potter to Spiderman to Superman, Pirates of the Caribbean, all these films. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have credits in them. So it's such a blessing. And with it is the secular area, obviously. I've made some connections with some Christian, co-workers. You kind of find them here and there.
They use the keyword blessed when you ask them how they are. You're like, I'm on to you.
I know, right? You drop in that keyword, and like, if they respond, I'm like, okay, you're a brother, or you're a sister, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's. I've been fortunate enough. I've worked in companies that were pretty, very good people. Very family oriented, like. People who tag team pretty well, so I do feel like I've been kind of spoiled in that sense, because I've known other, because Hollywood and visual effects, there's a lot of keeping to themselves a lot. If they know of some technique or whatever, they kind of hold it to themselves. They don't quite share it. And kind of, a little bit of, backstabbing a little bit. But it's, so that happens quite often in the entertainment industry. However, the places I've worked at, I've felt pretty good. I felt really protected, actually, from that. But producing stuff for the secular, environment, you're producing it for MGM Studio, MGM, Universal, New Line Cinema, big blockbusters. It's cool to see it on the film, on the screen, and it's cool to see your name there. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what's next?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to give up any opportunities because it didn't fit your values and what you believe?
Yeah, that was kind of a tough one. I've come across, I've worked on some films where it was a little bit, it was, against or not my preference in terms of my faith. Swearing is, word choices, the content that was displayed, or vulgar sometimes, or action, or a lot of blood and guts and
How
stuff like that.
did you navigate that?
Well, it's one of those things where I had to either pass, like I would get various shots, right, to work on. And some of the shots I would talk to my supervisor and ask, like, hey, I might not be so comfortable with this scene. May I choose another? That kind of thing. And unfortunately, they've been, very, very accommodating.
Wow. So you did not compromise. That is amazing. Now, you may not have had as many issues in your faith in the work environment, but in our previous conversations, you had mentioned that there was definitely a time in your life where you had to really stand firm in your faith in your family. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. When becoming a Christian, that was one of the big ones. So some background on it. I grew up in a Buddhist, Chinese Buddhist family. And a lot of, a lot of incense praying. There's an altar at home with the Buddha as well as my ancestors. And I totally respect them. My ancestors, those who come before me. But there was always that tradition of worshiping them. Worshiping them in a sense that, not just remembering them, but I always got the sense of elevating them above. They were like idols, and so, so that's how my upbringing was. I was required to do that. It was a very heavily Buddhist upbringing. I did go to, at the same time, this is around 7 or 8, where I was introduced to church, a Christian church, by a family friend. And from there, it was, we would go to church. Like my mom would be okay in us going to make friends instead of staying at home on a Sunday watching cartoons.
Makes sense.
Right? Which we would love to do. She was like, oh, just go make some friends. And so we kept going as long as we didn't believe. Just to go there, meet some good people, make some friends, but just don't believe. So that was kind of the requirement.
Okay.
And it kept going on. My parents were okay in us going. And so, and at the same time, we were still doing our traditional Chinese traditions and, rituals and stuff like that.
Were you confused as a little kid? So you're hearing one thing at this church, but this loving God, and you're around all these different people, and then you go home and you have to believe a whole different thing. What was that separation in your mind?
Yeah, that was not until we got older. When I say we, my siblings and I have 3 other siblings younger than I, and so we just went to have fun as kids. It was around high school. That's when things started getting a little bit clearer in terms of what you're saying. The Buddhist traditions, the Chinese traditions say this, but then being a Christian says this. So that clarity started, or that differentiation started being more aware. I started being more aware of that. So that's when things got more real for me. A loving God, a God who wanted to have a relationship, which was not displayed or talked about in the Buddhist side. And so it was around sophomore year when things started clicking, and I just didn't understand these 2 different lifestyles. And it was at a Christian camp when that's when God met me, where it was an altar call, and I responded, and I gave my life to God there.
A church camp.
At a church camp, yeah.
Me too.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
It was a retreat. It was quite a moving experience. And so from then, I identified as being a Christian. And
How old were you when you did that? High school?
yeah, it was like maybe 15, 16. Yeah,
Okay.
around that age. Yeah, around 15 or 16.
Wow.
And that's when that's where I had to stand firm at that time.
What struggles did you have when you finally made the commitment to live a life that was glorifying to God? How did that change your relationship with your family, with your parents, the people around you?
Yeah. It was, that was a trying time because because knowing Jesus now, he doesn't want, he wants all of your love. He wants a love, that's displayed in the Bible, right? Like love your God with all your heart and all your, all your mind, all your strength. And so, however, the worship, the Chinese worship was still going on. And so I had to stand up and tell my dad that I can't do this anymore.
Wow.
It was I love Jesus too much. I can't, I can't worship two things. And so right there, it was, he was obviously very upset and like regret that he allowed us to go to church. And so that part was, he got pretty mad at me and my siblings also were saved around that time too, and
At least you had that community in your family to support you.
Yeah, we had to stick together because at that time our dad did threaten to disown us, and just disconnect us, and so it was a lot of silence.
Wow.
During that time.
What advice do you have for people who are at that split in the road right now where they do see two different perspectives, and there's something that they've been exposed to and they want to believe in, but there's another thing that they know but they don't know is true? Like, what advice do you have for them to find the straight narrow path?
Yeah, it's not an easy road. Especially when it comes to deep-rooted traditions and rituals that you grew up with. It really depends too on, for me it was about family, right? How strong they are in their faith, in their belief, and how accepting they may be to other belief systems and stuff like that. So, I mainly am talking from that part, the very traditional angle. It's a lot of patience, a lot of time, and a lot of prayer. I think that's the part where there will be times where you will have to make some tough choices and go against something that you firmly believe in. I think that's the part where it's like, keep the faith. I would encourage people to do a lot of praying, being sensitive to who you're talking to, whether it's your friends, your family, and just be. At the end, you have to take a stand. You have to be bold at the end, You can talk as much as you can. You can encourage and kind of share. But at the end of it, it's like, sometimes you have to take a stand.
Your story is so relatable because every single day we encounter people who do not have the same beliefs as us. And figuring out how to navigate your conversations and your interactions in a loving, peaceful manner that will demonstrate everything that you want to demonstrate in a kind way.
Right, totally. I mean, it's you can't just go up to someone and just kind of just put the wall up. I mean, they're still human, and we're all still human. We all have feelings and emotions and certain attachments and relationships. We have to put that into perspective. We can't just shut someone down, even though I know this is the right thing for me. I can't just go up to my parents and say, nope, like, you can't tell me what to do or what to say when all this time it's been like this. There's a transition, and that transition has to be done in a loving way. Even at the end, even if my father did not agree with it, I still had to respect him as a father, and because I still loved him, I still love him, and I still respect him and his feelings and his upbringing. So I still had to tell him a little bit, but at the end of it, it was like, you know what, I still love you, but I still have to take a stand on who I am, and I'm a Christian, that kind of thing. So
as time has passed, has your parents' mentality about your Christian faith, has that changed at all? That's the burning question in my mind. What is that relationship like now?
Yeah, so I mean, it was hard in the first few years, and there's been kind of ups and downs of it, where it kind of came back, that subject of being a Christian or not. But overall, now fast forward, a decade, or even 2 decades, their hearts have been softened on who they see us as.
Just takes time.
It just takes a lot of time.
Patience.
A lot of patience, yeah, and they're a lot more accepting that we're going to church, we're raising our kids in the Christian household, and they pray with us, over meals or in between, and so it's really encouraging to see
There's
that.
respect on both ends.
Yeah, it took a while, but there was respect at the end, and we still hang out, we still have dinners together, and I'm glad we moved forward from that. So
that's fantastic. It's really inspiring to see how your peace in the situation and your patience in the situation has led up to where it is now. And I'd be excited to see where it is, even in the next 10 years of kind of what that looks like.
Yeah.
And you do have a family of your own now. Can you tell us what it's like being, the man of the household, being a man of God, and how that looks in your relationship with your wife and also as a father to your kids?
Yeah, my family, they're awesome. I love them so much, and so Amy's my wife, and she's lovely. I'm just so blessed to have her in my life. And with together, like, we raised 3 kids: Jubilee, Ethan, and Micah.
I love.
Love about them?
I love.
Oh, yes.
His kids are cute.
So yeah, Jubilee, she's 10, and Ethan's 7, and Micah's 5, and so they're just a fun bunch of kids. I'm just so privileged and so honored to for them to call me dad. And in our household, it's really such a blessing that I feel like I'm raising my kids the right way, in a way it's very it's God-centered, in that there's that they are being fed like good knowledge, healthy perspectives of life, because the whole thing is that being in a Christian household is not always smooth.
Of course not.
And and it's funny. It's like I don't want to portray that we're perfect.
We are sinners up in here.
Right. We're all still broken people. And we just have a Savior that will walk alongside us every step of the way. And I think that's a really cool thing in this, at least for the next generation, for me, that I can be a part of. Raising kids that have a good foundation in life because God is behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Was Amy a Christian when you met her?
Yes. Yep. We met at a college fellowship in San Luis Obispo called CCF, Chinese Christian Fellowship. And she was a Christian by then, but she didn't grow up in a Christian household either.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, we should have had her on the show too.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's okay. At least we're hearing about Amy through you.
Nah, you're right.
Yeah, you've been really, really, really inspirational. What advice do you have for people who, we don't all have the luxury to work in a ministry or work environment who seeks to serve God, right? I mean, not all of us get to do that. But for those who are in the secular work environment like you were in the past, how do you successfully navigate being able to balance your faith and your workplace?
Yeah. Definitely seeking those coworkers who are who may have the same faith is an option, and they're typically not as prevalent or available to talk to, but finding those connections, those helped a lot for me. Finding that one brother who you can just have lunch with and just like, God's been showing me this, or please pray for me. I'm struggling on this project or whatever at work. So having that fellow brother or sister in that environment is very helpful. Staying connected with your church is huge, and just being aware of you are the light in an environment that is pretty dark. So being aware of the choices you make really speaks volumes of your faith, and again, you are the light in that environment. So it's an opportunity, and it's also sometimes a great one because you shine really bright
in the darkest places.
In the darkest places, right? So.
One of the biggest things I think I learned from your testimony is that fellowship is very important. I think that's so easy to forget when we put God on the back burner and we don't get to go to church as often. I'm guilty of this myself, but finding those people, like you said, I've been able to find different people at every single job that I've had who also share the same faith as I do, and that helps tremendously. And I just want to thank you so much, Jeremy, for being vulnerable and willing to share your story. Shasta's journey would not happen without people like Jeremy sharing their story, and for also the volunteers that are back there making this show happen. So thank you for being a part of this journey. Go to shastasjourney.com, share your story. We want to hear it so you can teach, heal, or inspire others. Look us up at Shasta's Journey so you can see more inspirational posts, and thank you for being a part of my journey. God bless.